So we're going to talk today about three different groups, three different types of AI coding tools or prototyping tools or building tools, depending on how you want to think about it. The first group are really pure prototyping tools that are UI only. And they don't require you to know any technical knowledge, any code at all. They allow you to use click and drag, as well as writing prompts. And they're going to output a prototype really quick. And we're going to have a look at those really quickly. Things like Figma Make, R.I.S.E.N, UX Pilot, and there's loads more. They're just a selection. That's one group. We're going to look at that very quickly. The next group is the group where we build apps for. They need you to be a little more tech aware to do this properly. You've got to have an idea what a database is and be able to connect some stuff together, some OAuth together. It's a little bit more complex, but you don't have to be able to write a line of code. You don't really have to understand any code either. And tools of that nature are things like Bolt, Loveable, Replit, VO, and there's a huge raft of these tools. There's lots and lots of them. They're probably the most popular, the ones I come across the most. We're going to have a play with Bolt, and I'll show you how Loveable works slightly differently to Bolt at the same time. And then there is tools that instead of building apps for you, write code and require you to be much more technical, require you to have an idea of what the command line is, an idea of what Git is, Git version control, you have to deal with deployment yourself. And these are tools like Claude Code, Cursor, Windsurf. These are tools that typically we see the engineers use rather than product people, but I'm seeing some teams that have got more technical product people who are using these tools as well. So the aim of today is for you to be aware of these three different groups, had a little play with some, seeing how they all work. And Mike's going to take us through a demo of building this. We're going to build the same app in all three, and Mike's going to define the app in Cursor for us, so that you get to see how that works. And obviously, if you're more technical, you're very welcome to do it yourself as well. But it's more about gaining awareness of them and how you go about using them. And we're going to break between the three and have a chat and conclude with a conversation about how this impacts you as product leaders and how this impacts your teams. So these three, before we dig into each one in depth, just to give you a high level, R.I.S.E.N, this group, they build clickable wireframes incredibly quickly. There's some examples there. We're going to look at that in a sec. Bolt and Loveable look pretty similar, and so do all the others. These are the ones that build the app, and you get to see the code, and in some cases can edit code if you wish. And then Cursor, you can immediately see is completely more technical and requires command line, of which Mike's, I think, going to show Warp, which is an AI command line tool as well, which is really powerful. So I'm going to look at all three areas. Before we do that, I just want to have a quick chat about a prototype. Because a lot of use from product's perspective of these tools is prototyping, but it's probably worth that we all agree on what we mean when we say that word. Do you want to just put in, because it's meant to be interactive, do you want to just put in the chat window, what's a prototype to you? How would you define a prototype? Thanks, Mike. Something that works just enough to test a hypothesis. Something we use to validate assumptions, assess viability with users and prospects. Love it. Build and test and validate assumptions. Never built to, quote, work. Lightweight tool to validate the user experience. We're pretty aligned here, guys. This is awesome. Brilliant. Looks like we're very aligned. So my definition is a prototype is a quick, low-cost version of your idea designed to test assumptions. I think we've all pretty much said the same thing. It's an experiment, and that means it's to learn about some form of hypothesis or assumption. It is not version 1, which a few of you've mentioned, to quote work or etc. So it's not version 1. Be interesting to understand what stops you guys, your teams, or you if you're more of an IC, what stops your teams prototyping today? Just bash that in the chat window. What gets in the way? Because I normally find that teams don't do enough of this. What are the reasons? Cost of tooling, yeah. Roles, responsibilities. Yeah, whose job is it? Roles, responsibilities. That can be challenging. Limited resource, i.e. shared designer who's stretched across multiple teams. Yeah. Time and resources, setting it up takes too long. So we're pretty much saying it's too expensive. It's either too expensive or it's going to take too long because of the resource constraints or the fact we don't have the resources. That seems to be the agreed view. So before we move on to the next bit, we're going to go pretend we have a scenario. So we're all shared scenario of the app we're going to build. And as we go through looking at the 3 different groups of AI tools, we can think about how they impact those things you've just said. And we'll discuss that at the discussion points that we've got planned during this. So I think we should be able to come out of this the other end with a different view to how much it costs, a different view to how long it takes, and a different view to potentially a very different view to role and responsibility, depending on your perspective, and definitely a different view on speed. And so let's get into it. So it felt wrong just building an app for the sake of it, for just going, hey, here's an app. It felt like there should be a reason why we're building this thing. When we do this training live in corporate, I did this the other week for GiftGaff. The scenario we use is you're a supermarket product manager. You're working for a supermarket. And you have a problem. You've noticed that your stores, despite your huge investment in all these self-service checkouts, still are very busy and people take a long time to get through them at peak times, like Saturday morning. And you're a good product manager, so you went and did an observational study and looked, and you spotted this phenomenon of reverse shoppers. Shoppers that go the wrong way around the store. They get halfway around and then they go backwards for some reason. And obviously somebody going against the flow of traffic is going to cause challenges and delays. So reverse shoppers are our challenge, and we want to try and stop them. And you went and interviewed a bunch of reverse shoppers. You spotted them in the shop and you went and talked to them because that's the research you were doing. And you've come up with 2 assumptions or hypotheses, if you prefer. You've believed the reason you have reverse shoppers is they miss an item on their shopping list. They walk past it and didn't realize until they get to the item at the bottom of their shopping list that they've already passed it. Or they realize that for the meal they were planning in their head as they were going around, or when they wrote their shopping list, they'd missed an ingredient and they realized it was missing. So they have to go backwards and find it. So we have 2 assumptions. You believe, whether it's right or wrong, I don't really mind because that's why we're building a prototype. You believe that if you build a shopping list app based on recipes, you'll solve the reverse shopper problem, or at least reduce it. That if people can easily build their shopping list based on what meals they plan, and you create the list by food category, so they're based on what's in your shop, where it is, they would be easier, less likely to miss the item, and they won't miss items they shouldn't off the list because you knew what the recipe was. So you want to build a shopping list recipe finding app to test this hypothesis. So we'll start by trying to prototype it in UI-Z. So prototyping in UI-Z, let's start with that. So UI-Z is a simple tool. I'm going to share my screen in a minute and show this. But I put that prompt into it, and it took about 2 minutes, if that, to create me this clickable prototype. And what UI-Z lets me do is very easily edit the prototype with drag and drop and create a clickable thing. So hopefully you can see my screen. This is UI-Z. This is the prototype it created. First off, you can choose to view it as wireframe or view it as preview. So if you don't want the bias of the actual design and you just want to think about wireframes, you can put it in wireframe mode. And you can go in here, I'll put it back in preview, it's a little nicer. You can go in here, you can edit it, we could change the name, we could call this something else. And destroy the design. We can do what we want. Most importantly, we can hit preview And now we can see the app. I asked it to do it as a mobile app, if you remember the prompt. And I can go and preview it and play with it. I can hit getting started. I can go through the app and use it. So very quickly, within about 2 minutes and a bit of editing, if I wanted to change it, we can have a clickable prototype. And we can obviously share that now, publish it, or if we publish it, we can give other people access to it in the outside world. I haven't got the full license, which is why it's not letting me play with all the other screens it created. What is interesting is when it does it, when you ask it to auto-generate at least, which I did, it'll also come up with alternative design proposals. And you can change the look, you can change the options, which is quite nice. Not all designers manage to do that, so that's quite nice. And you can drag, drop, add screens. It's a little bit like Figma, I guess, in that way, apart from the fact it's built it for you, like Figma Make now does as well. So that's this particular tool. One thing that is of interest is you can export. And if you export, you can export as images, as a PDF, or you can export as HTML, CSS. Why would I want to export? If we don't spend long on this tool because these are the easy one, we're going to spend longer on the other tools. But why would I export? Well, I'd export because if I wanted better control of UI in Bolt and Loveable, and we're going to find out in a minute how hard it is to control the UI in Bolt and Loveable, in the next level of tools, if I want to better control what it looks like, what it creates, how it looks, I could, if I wish, start with a tool like Figma Make or Figma, or with UI-Wizard, and take the export and import it as part of the prompt to Bolt and Loveable, and then we'll use that as the design and drive the screens based on the wireframes or the HTML and CSS you give it, instead of it coming up with it from scratch, which is quite a powerful capability for us. So we're not going to spend too long on that one because that's the easy one. I'm going to spend a bit more time on Bolt. So could you guys go to bolt.new, please, which will take you to a screen a bit like this. So I'll just put the URL back. Bolt.new, if you can go to that. And we're going to do what's called a zero-touch prompt to start with. Now, why would I do this? Well, this is pretty helpful if we're wanting to brainstorm and just explore and experiment ideas and see what the LLM thinks of the idea it comes up with. It's unlikely that exactly what it produces is really what we wanted. This is more exploration. Straight after this, we're going to explain how we would build a more useful prompt. So if you could type into to Bolt, build a shopping list app with a recipe search and hit enter, it will start whirring away, and it can take a little while. So while it's building, has everybody got that, by the way? Can you type yes in if you've set it off? So while it builds, let's just talk about how to write better prompts, because we're going to need that. To write better prompts, we want to write better prompts for our general use of Gen AI, ChatGPT, or whatever tool you prefer. And then we're going to use this prompt structure to write a PRD in a specific format to get a better result out of Bolt than the zero-touch prompt that you've just put in. This particular model to help you write better prompts is easy to remember. The acronym is R.I.S.E.N, R-I-S-E-N, and it's role, instruction, steps, end goal, and narrowing. Role is pretty obvious. We're going to write one in a minute anyway. Instruction is being really clear what you want it to do. The steps is how you want it to do it. The end goal is what the output should be. And the format and narrowing is any constraints you want or any behavior of the LLM you want to, in how you want it to behave for you. So when we do this for writing a build prompt, we want to write a build prompt. So the role is you are a PRD writer. Write a build PRD for a shopping list app that is driven by planned receipts. Include finding recipes and adding ingredients. Now we might add other features in that step section there that you want. I've just kept it simple. Like you might add authentication or all sorts of other things. The key part is the end goal. We want it to write it as a markdown for a no-code app builder. We want to assume that database storage and a recipe API is available, but no other third-party tools, as we don't want any additional costs. So just to explain, why would we want it in Markdown? If we're working with tools like Bolt and Loveable and Cursor and Windsurf and Claude Code, all the more technical ones as well, if we structure our ask, our request to the bot as with some better context than just simply a big long prompt, if we structure it with Markdown, specifically the important thing here is with headers in providing structure. The headers provide the clarity to the bot of everything under this is to do, the context is this header, and then subheaders for further detail, etc., and some bullet points for key things we want it to do, or even check boxes. We end up with a prompt that these tools are going to use to much better, and they'll create a far better output. Now, personally, from experimentation, I found that Claude's chatbot is the best at writing these PRDs for creating build prompts, but all the other LLMs do a really good job as well. Claude seems to add some things that you might not think of yourself, and it definitely structures it even better. But they all do a better job than you or I are going to do on our own, probably to start with. And the aim isn't that we're going to cut and paste it blindly. The aim is that we'll take what it produces, here's what it produced for me, or a snippet, and revise and edit that Markdown until we're happy with it, that it's covering what we want. And this is really the work to start with. Get this right, put the effort in up front of really getting this prompt correct. Imagine, think of this like giving an engineer the right user stories and the right clarity. So it's not going to have to make up too much for you. And we're going to get what we wanted out of it. We're going to have the highest level of control. Assuming you want high control instead of zero touch, where you want it to do the thinking for you because you're not sure what you want. When we've got that, we can then, put it into Bolt and see what it produces. In my case, these are screenshots of what it produced. Hopefully, while I've been talking, your zero touch prompt has kicked off and managed to produce something. Has anybody got a preview window pop up yet? You have, brilliant, Richard, which means that other people are likely to soon too. So if you have a little click through and see what it did, see what it built, see if there's probably a recipe search bit, see what it's done, and let's have a little play. Just give you a minute or two to have a little play with it. For some of you, this might be the first app you've built with a Gen AI tool. For others, I'm sure you've already done this. But what's your first thoughts? Just try to put it in the chat window. What's your first thoughts now that you've, from a very basic prompt? Oh, Richard, it failed. Cheese on toast. Looks all right, doesn't really work. Yeah. Probably pretty expected at this early stage. UX is poor. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Again, these are the limitations. We did find spaghetti carbonara. Okay. So I'll just share my window again. So this is from a slightly more advanced prompt. And I would agree the UX is poor as well and some of the challenges, but it's a little bit different. Now, when I did it, it asked me because I gave it a much more involved prompt, actually not that much more, only this text here at the side that you can see. But when I gave it a bigger prompt, it connected up a database, which I did. I'm going to explain how you do that in just a second. And we got that running. And it's connected up an API, I think, from memory. Let me check if it did this time. So if we asked it for, I don't know, chicken curry. No, it didn't connect up the API. It's just found whatever it had in its recipes. So we could get it to connect up an API. We could say, use the meal DB API to do the search for recipes and ask it to do that. You can see it's doing that. It's gone and found the API. It's just updating. While it's updating, let me point out a few things in Bolt, and it's very similar in Loveable as well. The first is you can switch between code and preview. So you can have a look, you can either preview or you can look at the code if that's more interesting. In Bolt, you have access to the virtual terminal window, and in Bolt, you could edit the code if you want, and then a save button appears. We can do that actually. If there's a comment. I'll put it in here. If we just put anything. You can see a save has appeared, or we can undo it. In Loveable, you can't edit the code in the same way, but in Bolt you can, so it's slightly more technical, and the fact that we could go and do things in the terminal window if we wanted. In the main though, we just want the preview window. While I've been talking, it's gone and done that, so we should be able to now look for chicken curry. Let's see what happens. And it's found a chicken curry. And I didn't do a brilliant job. It's not showing me a list of results to pick from. It's just randomly picked one that wasn't there before. But this is where we would add. We'd say, hey, I want you to show me a results list, and then I'll pick the one, etc., etc. And that we've got to iterate as we prototype. We have to iterate to get the actual results we want, unless we put a lot of time in up front with something like R.I.S.E.N and had imported when we did the prompt. You can see down here, we can upload files. We could have started off and uploaded information, the graphics from the file from R.I.S.E.N and really got it to build exactly what we want with a defined UI, rather than letting it come up with it for me. A few other things to point out. There's a refresh button. So in case the reload, in case it doesn't work for you. If you were doing authentication, like on a different app I'm building, we were playing with LinkedIn authentication, it's really useful to pop that out of the window, because those OAuth things get a little messy in an iframe like this. So using the open preview in a separate tab is really important when you're doing that. The other thing to know is this button down here, this toggle. It says toggle between discuss or toggle between build mode. In Loveable, it calls it chat and agent mode. They're the same thing. In build mode, it's going to do what it's the mode you were just using. It's going to write the code immediately. In discussion or chat mode in Loveable, it's going to, when you ask it to do something, instead of doing it, it's going to tell you how it's going to do it. There's an advantage to that. Firstly, it tells you that much quicker, and you can be sure it's going to do the right thing before you sit and wait for the egg timer while it goes and does it. It's also, if you're some more complex, so you're trying to add a feature, we're trying to make an amendment, often it will misinterpret what you need and do the wrong thing, and then you've got to restore a previous version, which you can do by going up to a previous version. Oh, it's not on every one. If we go up to one that's got it, there we go. There's a restore button, and we can restore to that version. But that gets really time consuming when it's doing the wrong thing. So being in discuss mode, I can see if it understood me correctly, or if there's bugs. If there's a problem and a fault, I can chat with the LLM to make sure it understands the fault, and I'm happy that it's found the answer before it does it. So that's really useful, and it speeds up the process and means you consume less credits than wastefully having to restore and then redo things. And there's less credits to do the chat than there is to actually do the writing of the code. So there are a few little things. I just want to look at Loveable for a second. So this is Loveable, extremely similar. You can see it built the app off the same prompt, the basic zero-touch prompt. It built something. Loveable tends to produce lots of fake data and has to really be pushed to then integrate Supabase for the database. It likes to build everything with dummy data first, where Bolt and some of the others like Replit suggest a database backend and make things a little bit more complicated quicker. In some ways, that's better. In other ways, that's a disadvantage. If I want to prototype faster, I might be able to do it quicker in Loveable and get a feel with fake data before having to do the work to hook up databases. In the other tools, I'm going to end up at that database stage quicker. If I just switch back to my screen, to the presentation, just make sure I've not missed anything. So we've talked about chat mode and build mode, so that's good. Connecting to Supabase, there's in Loveable, there's a little Supabase icon in the top right corner. In Bolt, there's a integrations button. And when you click it, it's going to pop up and ask you to create a new project and create a new Supabase project and connect up to Supabase. Typically, you've got to have a Supabase account to do that first. You can set that up for free, though. I think they let you have 2 databases. They call them projects for free with quite a lot of data in them. So you're unlikely to hit the data limit while prototyping, just the number, obviously, depending how many different things you're working on. But you don't have to write any SQL. It's going to write that for you, but you do have to approve the SQL and run it in the database in Supabase for the tool. All that means is you click a button. You don't have to do anything else. I would suggest that when you come across this, especially after the initial build and when you're trying to make changes, that you read the SQL before you hit approve. And I appreciate you might not be, have an engineering background and understand what it's saying, but what you've got to look out for is the word delete and the word drop. Sometimes when it's editing a table, say it's decided to add a field, I've seen it decide to drop the whole table and recreate a new one, which if I've got no data in the table is absolutely fine. But if I've got data in the table, that's going to be an embarrassing problem because I'm going to lose all the data. So just look out for those words, drop and delete. And if you've got data you don't want to lose, then ask it to do it again without using drop or delete. It'll rewrite it using an alter statement, but you don't need to know that. How do you get back to starting a new project? It seems to be a question people get stuck on a lot. At the bottom left-hand corner is a little menu button. And if you click that button, it pops up with a start new chat. You can, at the very top, in the left-hand side menu, that it pops up and you can start a new project. You can also go back to your previous projects. Loveable calls them projects, Bolt calls them chats. They're the same thing. So we could build with a more specific, we could get you to build it with a more specific prompt and see what it produces. I think that might be fun to do. We've got time. So if you fancy writing, go into your GPT tool of choice and write in that R.I.S.E.N statement back at the beginning, back here. Something like that. It doesn't have to be word for word. And get it to produce some markdown for a no-code app builder and see what it produces and cut and paste it. It won't look like markdown, but when you cut and paste it, it is, so don't worry. It renders it, but it is markdown if you cut and paste it. And then we'll cut and paste that into a new project and see if it does something vastly different to the first one. Obviously, if you want to add some features in the steps section, add a few features. If you think, it'd be good if it did this, or I don't like the UX, somebody mentioned the UX was terrible, maybe give it some instructions to improve that in some fashion. Let's have a go and kick it off running in the background, and then we'll carry on. Once you've cut and paste some markdown into Bolt, if you could just type into the chat window on the video call, if you could just type in waiting, where you're waiting for the Bolt to do its job, then I'll know that we're what stage you're all at. If anybody gets stuck, just let me know. Oh, well done, Rich. Yeah, if you get stuck, just unmute and ask me a question. I'll help.
You mentioned the 2 different modes of build and discuss.
Build and discuss, yeah.
What did you expect the experiences to be different? Because I can't see that toggle option anymore, so I'm just wondering what experience.
The toggle option should be at the bottom. It's the little speech bubbles.
Yes, so it's not available because I think it's running.
But right. Yeah, it won't be available if it's running. When it's, I'd have got you to try it. when it's in discuss mode, it's going to come back pretty quickly with telling you what it's going to do, with a plan of what it intends to do, and normally a little button to say, "Shall I do it?" kind of thing, with a prompt for you to click to say, "Go do that thing," or you can chat with it and say, "Ah, I don't like what you were going to do. Change." You've told, it won't say this, but you've told me you're going to make the buttons blue. I'd like them red. It probably wouldn't have gone into that level of detail, but it'll tell you what it's going to do, and you can then chat with it and update it before it does it.
Okay.
So assuming this is the same, I often use the chat to get the app to plan first before it goes ahead and makes changes, because sometimes getting back from changes it's made can be a bit fiddly. And so I'll chat to get it to make a plan. I'll look at the plan. If there's anything I don't like in the plan, I'll ask it to change it there. And once the plan's good, I'll switch modes and go, okay, make it so.
While we wait for everybody to make this work, I'll just quickly do it and show you. So I've put discuss mode. There's the button. Discuss mode is now on. And what could I have it do? It didn't have that list, did it? It just showed me the chicken curry, let me select it. I would like to see a list of recipe results and choose one instead of randomly picking a recipe. So we're in discuss mode now. It's thinking about it. There we go. So if we scroll up, we can see it thought for 23 seconds. And now it's telling me, hopefully you can see this on the screen. It's saying, to allow you to choose a recipe from the search results, I'll modify the recipe-search Superbase Edge function to return multiple recipe suggestions, etc., etc. It's telling me what it's going to modify, the database changes it's going to make, the search PHP thing is going to change, the modifications to the TSX. And now I have a choice. I can get it to explain the meal database API, suggesting I might want to know that, or have a look at some of those files it's going to change for me, and I'm going to have a look at them if I so desire. Or I can just say, go ahead and implement this plan, which I've just clicked, and now it's going to do the work. So now it's actually writing the code. You haven't seen the database migration, but this is what it looks like. It will, you might have, depending what in a minute you might, it'll probably want you to do one. But it will, assuming databases, we've already hit the integration button and done the OAuth thing to connect it up. It's going to ask you to, it's going to create what's called a migration, which I think create tables and database rules and procedures. And it will show you it, allow you to read it. And most importantly, there's this big green apply button for you to click. And when you click that apply button, it will confirm and tell you what it's done. In this case, it's created some new tables. And you can view the SQL script first, but it will never make the database change without you clicking apply. It always asks for that in Bolt anyway. I think in Cursor you can get it to do it automatically, Mike.
Yeah, although I wouldn't ever do it automatically.
No.
That's out of fear.
So once we've got an app we're happy with and we've iterated and we want to show it to some people to get feedback, we need to publish our app. When we do that, we click the publish button and follow what it says. They'll want you to give it a name, etc. It's literally click the blue button, publish, and then follow the instructions. It's normally just 2 buttons to click. It's incredibly simple, and you get a URL of your app live that you can show people and use. And if it's been connected with Superbase, it's going to store things in the database for them as well. The diagram on this slide is showing you what's going on there, and this is really important. There is one Superbase database by default, and in Loveable and Bolt, definitely in Loveable, you can't change that. It then integrates one project, which means when you're making changes to it, it's making changes to even though it's not pushing the new code, it's not publishing the new code for you, it is making applying the database changes to the live database, which isn't helpful if you're running a live production app. Obviously, if it's a prototype app, that's less of a concern. But it means that you've only got the one database visible. You can, with some manual effort, change this, but through prompting only and without writing code, you can't change this easily at all. So it's worth understanding that's going on. You can change the look and feel of the app and how it behaves, but whenever it does nobody who's got your publish URL will see it until you click publish. But if you apply a database change, it's going to affect. There's only one database, so it's going to affect the published version as well as your developer version.